Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our third edition of Travelling Around the World During Lockdown. Today, we are going to be discovering India with our partners at Peirce Leslie. Just to tell you a little bit about Peirce Leslie, as you know, at Swords Travel, we are very particular who we work with, and there's a reason that we chose Peirce Leslie. It's because we've got a great relationship with them, but also we see their passion when they're talking about India as a destination. And every supplier that we work with, we like to know that they know that destination inside out. And I'm sure that you'll see that from Anil's presentation today. So today's session, as always, will be giving away £200 worth of vouchers to one lucky person at the end of the training session. But first of all, to start the session, I'd like to introduce you to Anil. So over to you, Anil, to say hello.
Hi, Mark. Hi, everybody. Just very quickly, it's always a pleasure to be on a call with Mark. Great fun. But for Peirce Leslie itself, it's also great to be reconnecting with people from the UK, because we actually started in the UK. Robert Peirce and Patrick Leslie were two guys who did not inherit the land and went to the colonies instead. And in 1901, they set up Peirce Leslie originally as tea planters and cashew nut planters, and then finally moved into travel. I have no idea why, but they did. I like to say we were around before the Spanish flu, and we're going to be around for long after COVID. India is a fascinating destination. So I'm going to take you through a trip, a typical trip. But do know this, that everything we do is customized, and you can work with Mark to design a trip that's exactly right for you. So this is just a sample itinerary. So we're going to start in Delhi. And of course, when you arrive in Delhi, we are going to do something different. We're going to take you to the old part of the city, because Delhi is a fascinating, fascinating city. There have been many generations and generations of different monarchies, of different rulers, and actually each Delhi is in layers, because years ago they just built city over city over city. There are 7 cities in layers through Delhi. So we're going to take you to the old part of the city, the Mughal Delhi. We're going to put you in a cycle rickshaw, and someone's going to pedal you through the old city. And it is absolutely chaotic, because this is craziness. People are coming at you from all directions, but you're in your little cycle rickshaw and you're moving along. People are honking horns. People are crossing the road at random. There are cows, dogs, cats, whatever, just crossing the road. It's organized chaos. But Indians live their lives on the streets. So you will see sights that you have never seen before. Like this guy getting a shave on the side of the road. Someone's getting a haircut. Someone's getting his shoes shined. It is just absolutely fantastic. We'll take you through the little alleyways, show you the old implements that are being used. For example, a guy doing some ironing. He doesn't have electricity on the street, so he's got an old coal iron with which he's ironing clothes. You'll walk through a tiny little alleyway where the walls are painted with gods and goddesses, and you're going to be wondering why people are painting the images of gods and goddesses on a small little alley wall, until somebody's going to tell you that they do this so that men don't pee on the walls. Pardon my French, but this is the real India. This is the India that we want to show you, not some sanitized version that you've read about. At the end of this walk, or the cycle rickshaw ride, or whatever you want to call it, this mixture, you're going to feel that you can take whatever India can throw at you, except in the afternoon, we're going to do something different. You will take a walk through Delhi, and your guide for 2 hours is going to be a rescued street child, someone who grew up on the streets, someone who lived on the streets, someone who knows the ins and outs and wants to show you his life. And he's going to tell you why he ran away from home, how he survived on the streets, what is the stuff he did. It's unfiltered conversation, and it's really an eye-opener. It's not a tearjerker, because these kids are now rescued. They're young and stupid enough to believe they're going to be the next Sachin Tendulkar. So it's a good story. They're cocky, they've got a point of view, they've got an attitude, and they're going to make sure that you know it. But here's an opportunity to see India as you've never seen it before. We will also stop at some of the monuments. And the nice thing about the monuments right now is because of COVID, there's a limit on the number of people that can go in. It's very well organized. You don't have to be among the crowds and the hordes. Everything that we do for the next 6 months will be very well monitored so that you don't lose the charm of India, but at the same time, we minimize your exposure to large crowds and places where you could be vulnerable. That actually is Humayun's tomb, and it's one of my favorite monuments. It is the tomb on which the Taj Mahal is modeled. The next day, you're going to fly to Varanasi. Varanasi is one of the oldest cities in the world. It's built on the banks of the river Ganges. And the amazing thing about Varanasi is it gives context to India. Hindus generally believe that there is no such thing as, or rather, there's no real hell. Hell is what you're living in today, which on a Monday morning, I'm sure all of you can identify with. But what they actually feel is that anything you do, you will pay for it right here, right now, and you will be reborn, depending on what you do, into a new life, which could be better, hopefully, because you've been a good person, or not so much better if you haven't. The exception to this cycle of rebirth is if your ashes are immersed in the river Ganges. Because if you do that, then you escape the cycle of rebirth and you achieve instant nirvana. So the Ganges is a holy river. People come there to pray to it. And every night they do a ceremony to put the river to bed. Now, mind you, they've been doing this ceremony every night for the last 3,000 years. If there's one person left in the city, the ceremony will be done because it's not done for the tourists. It's done for themselves. And if you're traveling with us, you will be in a boat on the river, watching the ceremony happen on the banks of the river. And of course, at the end of the ceremony, your boat will drift away and it'll stop at a tiny little temple a mile downstream. And there, your private priest is going to do an abbreviated version of the ceremony just for you. And that night, you will set the lamps onto the water to ward off evil, and you will put the river to bed yourself. And it is an absolutely overwhelming experience. By the way, my little gems of wisdom on Hinduism aren't popularly accepted, but it is a point of view. So don't go around asking your Hindu friends if you're living in hell right now. The next day, you travel 40 minutes to Sarnath. Now, Sarnath is where the Buddha gave his first sermon after enlightenment. And we do a walk where we take you through, it's called In the Footsteps of the Buddha. It takes you through his life, how he grew up. He was born into royalty and he was very sheltered because a soothsayer actually said that you will either be a very religious great man or you'll be a great king. No surprises, his parents wanted him to be a great king, so they cloistered him for a long time until he happened to see suffering and realized that suffering is inevitable. And then he went and meditated and was enlightened, after which he gave his sermon. When you travel with us, we will make sure that we end the walk with you sitting and chanting with the monks. And this is another great experience because you can actually feel a palpable buzz when you sit next to them while they're chanting. So now in 2 days, you've seen two great world religions and you're off to the Taj Mahal. Again, the Taj Mahal, we talked about different perspectives. We will take you inside the Taj and we will show you the amazing symmetry, the architecture, the geometric precision with which this monument has been constructed. But if you think back of all the images that you've seen of the Taj, most of the time, most of you would say you saw it head on, with the minarets at the side, the dome in the center. And that's the classic view of the Taj. But if you're traveling with Swords Travel, we'll take you across the water, if there's water in the river. If there's no water, we'll take you across the dry river bank. And we'll seat you in a pleasure garden early in the morning, before the fisherfolk are out, before the washermen are out, and the sun is going to rise over your left shoulder. And it's beautiful because the light is going to dance off that white marble. And at that instant, all you can think of is how much he must have loved her. Because the man who built this monument built it for his wife. And it's an important view that we're giving you. Remember, we talked about seeing things from different perspectives. This view is incredibly important because when Shah Jahan, who built the monument, was imprisoned in a palace coup by his son, he was housed in the Agra fort. And he never again got a head-on view of the Taj. So these are the little backstories that you will hear about and come back and brag about. These are the things that you will remember. When you're driving from one place to another, stop at a school. You don't have to pay anything for this, but just spend a little time with these kids and you will realize why people say that there is hope in India. These are bright kids and their lives are going to be made or marred by whether they can speak English or not. So if you can share a few words of English with them, it's going to give them a choice in life. Of course, if you do teach them English, it comes with a buyer beware, because they're going to join a call center and they're going to call you up and hassle you to buy some bonds or fix your TV or whatever it is that Indian people call you from the call centers. But it is an incredibly heartwarming experience to spend time with the children. Then you will drive from Agra to Aman Bagh. It's an Aman property. It's in the middle of nowhere, but we want you to get out of the big cities, especially during times of COVID. Spend a few days in the cities, then go out into the countryside. And there's so much to do to experience rural India. You can actually do a wellness session here, and you can get as involved in that as you want. Yoga, meditation, it's up to you. Ayurvedic healing. One of the lovely things to do is actually in the evening to have a sundowner and watch what is called the cow dust hour. This is the time when the villagers bring their cattle home. And very much like the gloaming, the dust kicked up by the cattle brings a magical sense of mystery to the whole area. We can arrange a lunch for you in the ruins of Bangar, which is it's a ruined town, and tell you the story of the sorcerer who fell in love with the queen and was rebuffed and then destroyed the city. Jilted lovers don't destroy cities anymore, but there was a time. Spend time with the locals, listen to their stories. This is local immersion. Go to someone's house and have a cup of tea with them. He might even share his opium bowl with you and offer you a puff. You don't have to take any of that. But I remember being totally surprised when I went and they passed around the hash pipe. And I'm not telling you whether I took the puff or not, but it gives you a sense of belonging. It gives you a sense of having understood a little more about the country. And I think that's really what travel is all about. From Aman Bagh, you're going to drive to Jaipur. Jaipur is a city of palaces. This is the palace. And if you're traveling with Swords Travel, what we're going to do for you is take you to the city palace and show you everything like everybody else sees it. But then two burly bodyguards are going to come up to you and flank you. And they're going to lead you away through this narrow little corridor with cobbled flooring, and you got to duck through to go through some of the doorways. And just as you're getting a little nervous, you will enter a courtyard and from there walk into the king's private living room. And you'll sit down at the same place where Lady Diana sat at the Lalique crystal table, and we're going to serve you a glass of champagne there. That is private access. If you're in the city for an extra day, we will arrange for you to have a meal with nobility, and they'll share stories of their past. They will share these age-old recipes with you. They will only give you the recipes of what you ate, which you can then carry away as a memento, because for the rest of it, they don't share the recipes. But this sort of private access gives you the ability to brag, yes, but it also gives you a sense that you've seen much more than everybody else. If you are interested in any of the art forms, this is the last generation that is going to be doing some of these art forms. We don't take you to shops where they're trying to sell you a rug that you don't need. Instead, we'll take you to people's workshops where you'll see them actually preparing things. They don't want to sell you anything because they already sell to a cooperative. But this particular method of block printing, again, is ancient, and they will show you how it's done. If you like, you will get your own swatch of cloth. You can make the print on it with the help of the craftsman and take that home as a memento. If you're in India, chances are there'll be a festival on at some point, whether it's Diwali, the festival of lights, or whether it's Holi, the festival of color, or even one of those Pushkar festivals which have camel fairs, and you think you're in the Old Testament with campfires burning and people with their cattle, they've come to sell their cattle. It's absolutely magical. So do take the opportunity to participate in a festival. You'll take it to people's houses, you'll celebrate with them. If there's a wedding in the neighborhood, you join them. You don't have to give a present. They're just really happy to see you there as the token foreigner at their son or daughter's wedding. Walk through the bazaars. It's a great place for people watching. The common factor among these four people is all of them are going to try and gyp you. But you don't have to buy anything. Chat with them, talk to them, ask the guy about his hash pipe and what he's doing with it. Again, these are conversations. This local immersion is something that you will carry back with you. From there, we're going to fly to Udaipur. Udaipur is the Venice of the East. You're going to stay at the Lake Palace, which was the summer residence of the king. Every room is different, but you can only get there by boat. So you take this little boat across and spend time in the palace. But we will also do some wonderful walks around the area to see the palace, to see the living palace, to see the royal collection of vintage cars. And I really encourage you to watch one experience which we sort of revived, which is the art of painting on water. I was in Udaipur one day and one of our guides took me and said, "You got to see this." And I went to this little hovel and there was a staircase going up the stairs, and under that, this priest had a little makeshift temple, and he had a bowl of water and he was sprinkling powders on it using a stencil and creating these images. And these images only last for a couple of hours. It could take 24 hours to make one of the images, but don't worry, we're not going to seat you there for 24 hours to watch paint dry, so to speak. What we will do is just at the end, you will watch him putting the finishing touches. You can even help him. You can do it yourself. And there was only one person left who was doing this art. So we started promoting it, and now there are about 8 or 10 people doing this. So it's really something that has been revived, something that's come back, and something we're incredibly proud of. Cook with a housewife. And when we say cook with a housewife, it's not really a cooking class. We will set you up with a lady who's got an opinion on Trump, on Boris Johnson, on Mr. Modi, on everything. And in her kitchen, she is the boss. She's going to tell you what to do. She's going to tell you you're putting in too much salt here, and she can be pretty tough because whatever you cook, you're going to eat. This is not MasterChef where there's another dish under the counter which magically appears. No, you will actually cook this meal, and then you'll sit down with her family. And in India, when we say family, it's the extended family. Everybody shows up. And suddenly this lady is going to be more diffident, more quiet. And you're going to wonder, like, what the heck is going on? Until she explains to you after the meal that I don't say much in front of my in-laws, not because I'm scared of them, but it's a question of respecting age. So this is another layer of the onion that you will peel off, and you will understand how Indian society works. What is the relationship between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law? And she's not ashamed of it. She gives you the logic behind why she doesn't need to speak. So it's a good experience, and you've learned something new. Now, when you go back to England and your friends say, "Hey, let's go to Brick Lane for a curry," you're going to say, Indian food is okay in restaurants, but I cooked this meal at home and I had this fantastic interaction with the woman, etc., etc., etc. And of course, all your friends, you might not have very many friends left at the end of it because you bragged so much, but they will all be wanting to go to India. From Udaipur, you fly to Bombay. Bombay is where I live, so that gives it 3 extra marks anyway. And that's the old neo-Gothic building, my favorite building in the whole world. It's the Victoria Terminus, the railway station. And if you look carefully, you'll see that it's modeled on St. Pancras Station. It's beautiful. It is just absolutely stunning. Some of the architectural nuances, the gargoyles, the little carvings from the old Hindu books, which were done later, of course, but absolutely fantastic. There is an urban legend that this building was designed in England, of course it was at that time, and it was meant for the Flinders Street station in Melbourne, but the plans got mixed up. We got this, they got the Flinders Street station. There's no guaranteed proof that that legend is true, but when you look at it, and you look at the architecture of Flinders Street Station, you can understand how easily it would have fitted into the Indian colonies and how this would have easily fitted into Melbourne. So I like to believe it. But we will take you to some other old architectural buildings and you'll see how, where Joseph Conrad wrote his classic, The Nigger of the Narcissus, and how he was inspired about it. And you'll learn about how Mark Twain actually visited Bombay and spent several days in what was then the Watson's Hotel, which was the first cast iron building in Bombay. So there's a lot, the architectural tours that we do are fascinating, but we also do a Mumbai by dawn, and you'll watch the city wake up. You'll see newspaper vendors sorting newspapers. You'll see people flocking to the tea stalls before work, and you don't have to drink that tea because that stuff looks pretty grimy. But what you can do, if you like, is you can be the guy pouring the tea. We'll set you up at the kettle and you're pouring the tea and people having conversations with you. Another unforgettable moment. We will end your visit, the main part of your trip, with a visit to the second largest slum in Asia, India's largest slum. It's called Dharavi. But we don't do a slum tour here. We do a walk of hope. What is fascinating about this is there are no beggars in this slum. This is the first place people come to when they arrive in Bombay. They've been told that the streets are paved with gold. Of course, when they wind up here, they find that it's very different. There's no indoor plumbing. It's very harsh living conditions. But there are no beggars. Everybody goes to school because everyone here is fighting to move to the next level. They are going to survive no matter what, and they're going to make sure their kids are educated so that they will have a better life. If you are interested in extending your trip and doing other things apart from the standard India 101, we have the information. We can take you and show you the most amazing wildlife. There are a bunch of national parks, and what we like to do is break up the cities. You're in a city for a few days, and then you go and spend a couple of nights in a wildlife sanctuary. And India has its big five. We have the Asiatic lion, the tiger, the leopard, the elephant, and of course the one-horned rhinoceros in various parks. And the accommodations are stunning. They'll tell you they're staying in that you're staying in a tent, but of course that tent is much nicer than my house. So it's a great opportunity to reconnect with nature and to spend some time alone. Again, wellness, and you can choose how involved you want to get in your wellness. You can dip your toe and just do a little bit of a few spa treatments and relax, contemplate. After this pandemic, it's actually probably a good thing to go and reconnect with yourself. Do some yoga. If you are into Ayurveda, then we can design a stay for you, which is 4 nights, and you consult with an Ayurvedic doctor who deals with all the ailments that you have. Heavy duty meditation, yoga. I love to think that yoga is so dependent on where you are. So it's very different to do yoga. There's a big difference between doing yoga on the top of a mountain and doing yoga in your living room. So we'll give you those opportunities for stunning locations to take those photographs and come back and think about them. For travelers from the UK, an oft ignored destination is Kolkata. It used to be called Calcutta in those days. This was the capital of India during British rule, and it still retains its colonial past. That is the Victoria Memorial, built for Queen Victoria, even though she never actually visited. But the architecture is superb. There are museums, some fantastic books, art, and some just empty Zen-like spaces built into the Victoria Memorial, which is absolutely awesome. Visit the Marble Palace. Bengal is juxtaposed between colonial Bengal and the Bengal of the Nawabs and the landowners. So this is a private palace. It's called the Marble Palace. It was the first museum in India. And you walk around there and you'll see it's decrepit, it's dusty. You can't have a guide in there. The old family retainer is going to take you around. And suddenly you'll see a painting by Sir Joshua Reynolds, another one by Peter Paul Rubens. Absolute treasure trove of art and culture, but privately owned. And if you're lucky, you'll get to see the Maliks, who are the owners of this place, because they actually live in there, and they have this exotic collection of birds. Quite a fascinating, idiosyncratic break from the normal, everyday humdrum life. We'll also take you to a place called Kumarathalli, which is a locality in Calcutta, where every single person there is a potter and makes these clay images. So what they do is, right through the year, they make these clay images of gods and goddesses. And in October, depending on the year, October, November, they have what are called the pujas, or the festival of in Calcutta, where every family brings home an idol and they feed the idol, they clothe the idol, they worship it, and at the end of the 14 days, they throw it into the river Hooghly. So all these people do from throughout the year is make these idols, sell them during the festival season, and then start making fresh idols for the next year. Again, a fascinating experience. We'll even let you try your hand at it. I'm pretty sure whatever you create is not something you'd want to worship, but it's an interesting. It's a lot more difficult than it looks. They actually, this is the same bunch of them painting the idols before they sell them. The final stop option, we have plenty of options, but the one that I'm going to talk about is Goa. And Goa, like Calcutta, was the capital of India in the eyes of the Portuguese, because the Portuguese ruled this part of the world at that time. And Goa was only liberated in 1963, because even after independence, the Portuguese retained control of Goa. But if you go to Lisbon, you'll see writings about Goa, and you'll see how things happened in Lisbon and immediately were then duplicated in Panjim, which is the capital of Goa. And for a while there, Goa became popular in India in the 70s because of charter tourists who came for the beach and the water and stayed a week in shacks and things. But it has changed a lot. And now the Taj did a lot by adding a few hotels there. And you've got great accommodations, but you've also got people exploring the old history of Goa from the days of the Portuguese, the architecture, the churches of Goa, the locals. The beaches, frankly, are not the best beaches in the world for swimming, but Goa is not only about beaches. Goa is about that mix of beaches, and there's a Portuguese word called sossegado, which doesn't translate into anything accurately, but broadly means a sense of acceptance, chilled out, couldn't care less, I'd let the world pass me by. And that feeling of time standing still and you just existing and just being is what Goa is all about. As Lao Tzu, our Chinese friend, said, a journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. And I think you just took that step. So that's India for you. And if you have any interest at all, I'm sure Mark will work something really fantastic for you. I'd like you to know that because of the difficult times, we want people to travel. And so if you're going to travel anytime before the 31st of March 2022, if your traveling is commencing before the 31st of March 2022, that's about a year and a half from now, there is zero cancellation and zero deposit that we take. So you could just book now and get excited about it. And then at that time, you might have booked a year out. At that time, you might decide, hey, you know what? I don't think I'm ready to travel yet. And you can just cancel without any penalty. So it's a great opportunity for you to get your feet wet, start thinking about it, start exploring what you'd want to do. And we're here to help you. Thanks, Mark.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Anil. It was a really interesting presentation. I think India is one of those destinations that we could talk about all day because there's so much to see and do in India. Myself and Stuart were really lucky a couple of years ago. We got to actually do a 2-week culinary tour in India, and it was just amazing. We stayed at some fantastic palaces. We did the beach at the end, so we really got a feel for it. And actually, for my first time in India, I think it really changed my perception of what India was going to be. But I think from what you show, you've showcased that India's got so much to offer. And I think a lot of people at the moment are very concerned about COVID. So that is a real great offer that you've got there to be able to support people with the cancellation fees and not have to worry about that in the back of their mind. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for the presentation. That was great. Before we had the call, Anil did say as well, if any of you on the call today would like to discuss an India itinerary, we can arrange a Zoom call together. We can do a one-on-one because obviously what everybody's looking for is different. And you might have different interests to other people. So we're more than happy to arrange a one-to-one phone call or a Zoom session with the 3 of us attending to discuss any requirements that you might want to go through. So as we said at the beginning of the call, we'd like to do a prize draw. So all the attendees that are on the call today are in this little box. And we draw one out. So the winner of our £200 voucher is Teresa Mabbott. Congratulations, Teresa. You can use that towards any Peirce Leslie trip between now and, like Anil says, right up to 2022 at the moment. So congratulations. We'll be in touch with the details for that. We've not got any questions coming in, Anil, but obviously if anything does come through, I will make sure we send them to you guys and we'll be in touch. But just to say thank you for taking the time out today. I know that you're on vacation in the US at the moment, so you definitely deserve a vacation after this year. And thank you for really taking the time out to join us today.
Thank you, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to see some of you in India in the not too distant future.
Definitely. I'll be there with them as well, for sure.
Great.
Just to let you know, everybody as well, next week we will be covering Africa with our partners at Knight and Reeve. So if you would like to sign up for the Africa presentation, it's on our Facebook, or get in touch and we can send you the link for the Africa presentation. But thank you everybody for joining, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Cheers. Bye, guys.